as I said, remember, this is a thank you from us to you. Every one of you here is welcomed, loved, and appreciated for what you've contributed to our mission. I'd like now to introduce our honorees. First, Dr. Donald Landry, a distinguished and prolific scholar. He has a special place in the history of our foundation. When the chairman of medicine at Columbia, Dr. Mike Weisfeld, who had helped me found my program for gender medicine, when Mike left to take a position at Johns Hopkins, it was clear that there was no support from the new chairman for the revolutionary idea that men and women are different, and that research on women was not only a good idea, but an intellectual imperative. I left the medical center proper and formed this new foundation for gender specific medicine, but I had to leave behind a $1 million fund we had created to honor Dr. Irene Ferrer, who, as you've heard, is one of the first women professors at Columbia and an internationally renowned scholar who worked on the Nobel Prize-winning team that invented the cardiac catheter. When Dr. Landry was appointed as the next chairman of medicine at Columbia, my daughter, Christiana, who is here tonight, urged me to approach Dr. Landry to see if he would make some of that funding available for the support of young investigators interested in the differences between men and women. He was very gracious. He received us that day, and to this day, he made the income from that fund available each year to name an annual grant of $60,000 for the Ferrer Scholars, of whom the latest scholar is here this evening. Would she just stand up and say? Scholarship and leadership in medicine is outstanding and uniquely diverse. Probably the most significant acknowledgement of this was his recipient of the Presidential Citizens Medal presented to him by President George W. Bush in 2008. Established in 1968, this medal is one of the highest honors the president can confer on a civilian, second only to the Presidential Medal of Freedom. The citation described him as a man of science and a man of faith, who has demonstrated that there are responsible and ethical ways to advance stem cell research. His remarkable development of an enzyme effective in cocaine addiction was one of the most important, and to me, one of the most original of his achievements. An accomplished expert in kidney disease, he defined the role of vasopressin in preventing lethal shock in patients and built a unique hemodialysis service. In his leadership role in Columbia, he founded a division of experimental therapeutics and was chief both of the Division of Nephrology and for 16 years head of the Department of Medicine. He also served as the first director of the Birch Lodge Center for Human Longevity, and finally, and possibly most prestigiously, president of the American Academy of Science and Letters. Dr. Landry.
This is a profoundly meaningful award. I've completed now 40 years at Columbia, 16 years as chair. I've been on sabbatical for the last year, and taking stock of all of that time, it was clear that my career was shaped by individuals who were giants There's a saying from Isaac Newton, if I have seen father, it is because I have stood on the shoulders of ye giants. Marianne Legato, Myron Weisfeld were those individuals who influenced me, watching their interaction, watching how he led the Department of Medicine. It was the only thing I could possibly do. Treat Dr. Legato with all respect and immediately bend to her wishes. And it worked extremely well for the Department of Medicine and for all of the scholars who were helped through those funds. And so I'm here, I really hate things like this. So I'm here purely out of gratefulness and a desire to honor Dr. Legato for the dedication of a lifetime of professional effort. What can be accomplished when one devotes an entire life to a project? You're witnessing it here. So let us applaud Dr. Legato.
Thank you so much. I feel incredibly honored to be Columbia's Ferrer Scholar this year. This award is incredibly helpful for my new lab that began just 3 months ago and getting us off the ground. So my group, I'm an infectious disease physician scientist. We study malaria, which is still an incredible public health problem in sub-Saharan Africa. 249 million cases a year, 500,000 deaths in children under 5. But the other population that is really affected is pregnant women, and it's 10 to 20% of maternal mortality is due to malaria. And so as drug resistance spreads, it's really important that we understand the biology of the parasite in the hopes that we can understand and discover new pathways in how the parasite responds to drugs and how it becomes resistant to drugs. And that's what my lab seeks to do, with the hope one day of developing new antimalarials to combat this. And so this award will be instrumental in getting us set up and getting off the ground.
Our next award is to a duo of whom I'm very fond from Johns Hopkins, Dr. Sabra Klein and Dr. Wendy Bennett. Together, they launched the Johns Hopkins Center for Women's Health, Sex, and Gender Research in 2016. Evolved out of a multidisciplinary collaboration between scientists from the schools of medicine, nursing, and public health. We have had a vital role in the financial and intellectual support of this group, and our partnership was so successful that our collaboration was recently officially acknowledged in the medical literature as an example of how collaboration between a prestigious academic medical center and a small private foundation can succeed and bear important fruit. Dr. Klein's expertise in microbiology and immunology has established her as an international expert in sex differences in response to infection and treatments for infectious diseases. Dr. Bennett not only has a research program focused on improving obesity, diabetes, and cardiovascular care for women across their lives, but importantly, is a primary care doctor who leads the research program for the Johns Hopkins community physicians. If they would come up.
Quick picture right here, please, Doctor. Doctor, quick picture.
Hopkins, and it is such an honor to be here to thank you both for honoring the work that Wendy and I do through our center. We have been really just so blessed with this relationship to be able to support junior investigators through networking opportunities, through seed grants, and through engaging with the scientific community and bringing our scientific knowledge to the public. So thank you so much, and I'd like to invite Wendy.
And I also want to just add on how grateful we are, and also grateful for, as Dr. Landry mentioned, the relationship with Dr. Mike Weisfeld. So Dr. Weisfeld was our Department of Medicine chair and introduced me and Sabra to Malaria and Dr. And has really grown, our love for her and because of her support of our center. I want to share with you that we were able to convince the NIH that this work mattered through a career enhancement core that was funded under a center grant that Sabra is the PI on, and I lead this core in. And it was because of the work and the history of funding that we received from the foundation over so many years that when we were reviewed by NIH reviewers, they said this group can really do this work. They can fund pilot awardees, they can do sex differences work, and so during the course of our 5 years of funding of our center, we were able to award about 2 grants per year, so one from the foundation and one from the NIH, so it was matching funds. During the pandemic, thank you so much to the Secundas, we were able to add on additional awards focused specifically on COVID-19 research and sex and gender differences related to the infection, which was so needed at that time, and it allowed us to really be nimble and flexible and provide funding very quickly, because if we had to apply for funding to NIH for that, it was, as you know, review cycles would take a long time, so we were able to make very fast awards, which was great. And we track our awardees, so we follow our junior faculty awardees to really see the impact that these awards have on their career growth, on their development, on their ability to then get the next step. I think we'll hear from Dr. Hantsoo a little bit about her story and how it really is instrumental at times where people really need funding, bridge funding to help them get bigger and better grants and launch their careers in academic medicine. So thank you, all of you. Thank you to the foundation. Thank you, Marion. We are eternally grateful. All right, well, thank you so much. My name is Liisa Hantsoo, and I'm an assistant professor at Johns Hopkins. And I wanted to thank Dr. Legato and the foundation for this award, as well as to Dr. Bennett and Dr. Klein for their mentorship and support. So this funding came at a really opportune time. If there are any researchers or scientists in the room, you might know that for early career scientists, there's something called the K to R transition, where you go from sort of an early career NIH grant to a bigger kind of independent grant called an R01. And I was having a little bit of trouble making that leap. And was having a lot of days where I was feeling just about ready to kind of throw in the towel. And so this award came at this really critical time, and not only gave me the financial support, but I think also in some way sort of emotional support to kind of keep going. And I was very excited that about a month ago, I was able to get an R01. So I finally kind of made that thank the foundation for that. And I'll just say really briefly, kind of the topic of my work is premenstrual dysphoric disorder, or PMDD, which is a sex-specific depressive disorder. It affects around 5% of women, and it's extremely understudied and very underfunded. It's difficult to diagnose clinically,
and there are no good biomarkers for it. And so it's basically kind of very severe PMS. So people have very intense mood symptoms in the week or so prior to menses, and it correlates with fluctuations in hormones. But if you look at the hormone levels of someone with PMDD versus someone who doesn't have PMDD, they're the same. You can't differentiate. So you can't just draw someone's blood and say, oh, you have this hormone level, that means you must have PMDD. And so a lot of women will go for many, many years being misdiagnosed, treated with sort of inappropriate treatments for what they have. And so one of the lines of research that I'm pursuing is to try to figure out what mediates this hormone sensitivity in these women, and are there biomarkers that we could use to help in diagnosing this disorder. So I really appreciate this support. Thank you.
So you've heard from the young people that we support. I hope you feel very proud of yourselves. And as I said, this whole event is to thank you and to show you the extent, the depth, and the reach of what your support has meant. It is only, I can't believe it, every year that the money is there to help these young people. It's like watching flowers grow in a garden to hear people like this. And thank you, thank you, thank you. Enjoy the rest of the evening. We're going to have dancing and more fun.